everyone. I'm so excited that you're joining me again for book club. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have been reading this book called The Outsider by Katy Morgan, and it is a retelling of the true story of Ruth, which you can find in God's Word, the Bible, in the book of Ruth. I want to catch us up on where we are because we're picking up in chapter 13 tonight. Now, if you missed any of the other book club episodes, you can go back and you can look at them, you can watch them, and tune in. So don't feel like you have to pick up with chapter 13 tonight. You can go back and listen anytime. But tonight we are picking up where Ruth is in a field picking barley, and she is getting really tired because all that she can do is pick up the grain that the harvesters drop or leave behind by accident. So she's picking up little by little and doing the best that she can, but this is the only way that she can get food for her mother-in-law, Naomi, and herself. And she's planning to bring this back to Naomi at the end of the day. But we left off right in the middle of a day of harvesting. So we're going to pick up there. And thank you so much to our reader tonight, Wes Sanders.
Chapter 13, The Master. In the middle of the morning, I allowed myself a little rest. There was a rough shelter made of branches by the side of the field, opposite the guard's platform. Big water jars had been placed there, and occasionally one of the workers would go over to fill a cup, refresh themselves, and sit in the shade for a few moments. I had told myself that when I got to a certain point in the field, I could go over there too and enjoy being out of the sun. But I wouldn't go at the same time as anyone else. I wanted to avoid the harvesters, especially the men with their sharp sickles. I had nobody to protect me, no father or brother or husband to fight for me. And I was pretty sure that everyone in the field knew that, must realize that. So they would also know that if they wanted to make my life difficult, nobody would stop them. Just keep quiet and don't annoy anyone, I told myself shakily, and things will go well. When I finally got to the point of the field that I had marked out in my head, some of the harvesters were in the shelter. Cursing inwardly, I kept my head down and focused on the field until at last I heard the overseer shout, "Back to work, boys. You've had long enough." I felt dizzy with relief. As the workers made their way back into the barley, I pulled a couple of black threads out of my headscarf and tied them round the tiny stack I'd gathered to mark it as my own. Then I walked over to the shelter, keeping my eyes down, trying to blend into my surroundings and not draw attention to myself. I didn't dare drink the water from the jars. I'd brought a little skin of my own, though, and I tipped my head back and glugged down the water inside. It was warm and a bit sour from being left in the sun, but it was water. I poured a tiny bit onto my hands and carefully wiped my hot face and arms. Then I sat back against a cool rock that formed the base of the shelter at the back and nibbled a bit of bread I'd brought with me. Across the field, the overseer nodded at me. Hopefully that meant he didn't mind me sitting here. I wondered who his master was, who was so rich that he not only owned this big field, but could also hire all these workers and not even do any harvesting himself. I suddenly worried that when he turned up, which the overseer said he would, I would be chased away. One of the women had definitely given me an unpleasant look as I'd walked past her and the other workers. She'd be glad to see the back of me, I was sure. And why shouldn't she? I was the lowliest of the low. I had nothing. I wasn't even a hired servant like she was. I was just a dirty, poor foreigner who nobody cared about. Hopefully the master would take his time in coming down. I rested as long as I dared, which wasn't very long, and then shuffled back across the field to keep on working. This time the men stopped their work and openly stared at me as I went. I tried to ignore them. "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you, sir." "May God bless you, sir." I straightened up as the shouts rippled across the field. The woman closest to me was curtsying. The men with the sickles had put them down to raise their hands in greeting. All of them were focused on a newcomer who was standing among them with a big grin on his face. "May the Lord bless you, sir," another of the workers said, clasping the newcomer on the arm. "How goes it?" "Oh, well, business as usual," laughed the newcomer. He looked around at the harvest. "You're making good progress here. Praise God. Let me just speak to the overseer, and then I'll come and join you." "Yes, sir." The men hefted their curved sickles again. I watched the newcomer pace across the field, taking care not to disturb the fresh stacks of barley. He was a thick-set, strong-looking man, but not young. There was gray in his reddish beard. He wore good quality boots and a well-made coat over his tunic. There was no doubt about it. This was the master, the rich man who owned this field. Hastily I bent over again, feverishly searching the ground for bits of barley. There was one. I added it to my fistful and crawled forward another hand's breadth. Then another. Then another. "Keep your head down, Ruth." But it was too late. I had already attracted his attention. "Who does that young woman belong to?" The master's voice was loud and floated easily over to me from the overseer's platform. "She's the Moabite," I heard the overseer say, but the rest of his sentence was snatched away. Next, I heard footsteps crackling through the field. "Keep gleaning," I told myself, gritting my teeth. "Don't look up. Don't draw attention. Just get as much as you can before they make you stop." Another patch of ground, another scrap of barley, another patch of ground, and another scrap of barley. I heard the master's voice, quieter this time, talking to the harvesters. I wished I could hear what the instructions were. "It doesn't matter," I told myself. "Keep gleaning." Another patch of ground, another square of broken stalks, this time without any grain on them. Then footsteps came close to me, a man's footsteps coming heavy and fast through the stubby field. I looked up. Then the master stood in front of me, not too close. He had a nose just like Malin's. I noticed thin and straight, not stubby like Naomi's was, or like Killian's had been. "I'm Boaz," he said simply. "I heard you've been working in my field all morning." "Sir." "No, don't worry," he cried, seeing my fear. He waved his hands eagerly. "Listen to me. You're welcome. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me." He jerked his head towards the harvesters. "Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. Don't be afraid. I've told the men they are not to lay a hand on you." He gave a broad smile. "Oh, and whenever you're thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled. It's no problem." I gaped. I was shaking. I leaned forward, bowing down and pressing my forehead to the earth, the deepest bow I'd ever made. "Sir," I said formally, "I'm a foreigner. Why have I found such favor in your eyes?" "I've been told all about you," Boaz answered, "all about what you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. how you left your father and mother and your whole homeland and came to live with a people who you didn't know before. His voice sounded genuinely admiring. I straightened up. This was really real. It was going to be all right. He was practically saying I could act like one of his own workers, drinking their water, using their shelter, and following close behind them. I met his gaze with a grin. May the Lord repay you for what you've done, Boaz said warmly. May you be richly blessed by the God of Israel. You've come to him for shelter. You've come under his wings. You've come under his wings. Then Boaz didn't think that the Lord had cursed us. In fact, he thought the opposite. I bowed my head. Sir, I told him, you've put me at ease by speaking kindly. I'm your servant. I mean, I don't even have the status of one of your servants, but you're being so kind. Boaz only chuckled, waved his hand again as if to dismiss what I'd said, and paced away. Chapter 14. Under his wings. At noon, another servant of Boaz's arrived, a woman carrying loaves of bread and jars of oil and vinegar. The workers all went to the shelter, and the overseer handed out cups and bowls. I hung back, but Boaz beckoned to me. Come over here, he shouted cheerfully. Have some bread. He thrust a big loaf into my hands and pulled me towards the woman with the oil. Dip it in the wine vinegar. It's good. I broke a bit off and sopped it into the bowl of vinegar the woman had poured out. It was good. The bread was fluffy and the vinegar sharp. I ate more and then more. Here's some water, Boaz said, drawing me a cup. Would you like some roasted grain? He handed me another bowl and poured the cooked barley into it from a sack. Have as much as you want. It's good. Everything seemed to be good from Boaz's perspective. I felt good, too, like he'd warmed me up inside. I tucked in and ate until I felt fuller than I'd felt in weeks. I repeated Boaz's words in my head. The God of Israel, you've come to him for shelter. You've come under his wings. When I was very small, Dinah owned a hen named Beautiful who had 4 chicks. I used to watch the chicks putter around near their mother, never going too far. I loved those chicks. I used to proudly count them every time I saw them. 1, 2, 3, 4. But one time, I could only see 3 chicks. I could still remember how upset I'd been. What could have happened to that last little chick that had seemed so healthy the day before? Had it been eaten? Had it been stolen? Had it got lost? Had its mother abandoned it? I stumbled towards Beautiful, the hen, and squatted down in front of her on my little legs, bawling my eyes out. Then Dinah found me. Ruthie, you don't need to cry, she said gently. Look, the little chick is just under here. She put out a hand and patted the mother hen, feeling her wings and her breast feathers. All of a sudden, a little head popped out. The 4th chick. It had been hidden inside its mother's feathers the whole time, perfectly safe. It was sheltering under her wings. The God of Israel, you've come to him for shelter. You've come under his wings. Those were Boaz's words. I knew the God of Israel was supposed to be kind to his people, and I knew he was powerful. but I hadn't ever thought of him like that, like a mother hen. Like a mother hen who might welcome a chick that wasn't even her own, and let it nestle underneath her feathers for warmth and shelter. Could a God be so kind as that? Yet, as I munched yet another mouthful of food and watched Boaz roar with laughter, I began to believe it. Boaz's servants were definitely less efficient in the afternoon than they had been in the morning. There was far more grain being left behind as they gathered their bundles, and therefore far more grain for me to pick up. I was pretty sure that some of the women had even taken some stalks from their own sheaves and strewn them across the field just for me. Had Boaz told them to do it? Was he really that generous? Whatever the reason, the fact was that by the time the sun began to fade, I had gleaned a lot of grain. Far too much for me to be able to carry it all back to the potter's house. I would need to separate the grain from the stalks right there beside the field, which meant threshing. In order to thresh grain properly, you really need to have a proper threshing floor that's been designed for the purpose, rather than just using any old piece of flat ground. It would also be better to have a proper flail rather than an old stick. But these things were not available to me. I was going to have to improvise. The strip of land by the edge of the field looked just about flat and wide enough. I kicked away the stones scattered across it, sweeping my sandals along the ground to make it as smooth as I could. I picked up one of my stalks of barley and dropped it in the middle, arranging it so that all the stalks were pointing out and all the grain was in the center. Now it was ready to thresh. All I needed was a makeshift flail to beat the barley grains from their stalks. Before I could even start looking for one, Boaz was beside me. "Here, how's this?" He handed me a thick stick that he must have cut from a tree especially. "Tomorrow I'll get someone to bring a proper flail for you. But will this do for today?" I couldn't make eye contact with him. I just couldn't. Instead, I took the stick and hefted it in my hands. It was a good stick. "Thank you, sir." "No problem. Look, I meant what I said earlier. Don't go to another field. You can stay with my workers until they've finished harvesting all my grain, the wheat as well as the barley." He was looking out into the field, shielding his eyes against the low sun as his servants finished their work and gathered their belongings to go home. It was the gaze of a man who was satisfied with what he had. "Sir," I said softly, "are you always this generous?" He turned to me with sparkling eyes and a broad grin. "Well, I don't often meet," but he stopped suddenly, distracted. He'd spotted something behind me. No, someone. He smacked his palm on his forehead. "That messenger is coming for me. I'm sorry. I've just remembered I've got to go." He backed away and jogged towards the messenger coming down the hillside. I turned and watched him go. "He's like that," came a woman's voice behind me. "Boaz, he's a busy man." It was one of Boaz's workers, a young woman with small features and soft dark eyebrows that touched in the middle. She smiled at me. Today was a rare day. He doesn't often come and work in the field for the whole afternoon. "He puts a lot of trust in his servants," I said, "to do their work well without him there." She nodded. He chooses carefully. Then she looked at me curiously. He's obviously impressed by you. All that grain? Did he tell you to pull bits out so that I could glean more? I asked. Yes, he did. Not a very usual request from a man who makes his money from what he harvests in the field. She paused. Then, as if making up her mind, she put a hand on my shoulder. I'm Iska. My husband isn't sure about you, since you're a Moabite. But if Boaz likes you, then so do I. Iska, I repeated, smiling. I'm Ruth. Then I sighed. I'd better thresh this grain. It'll be dark before long. Chapter 15. Thief! By the time I reached the potter's house, it was entirely dark. Mercifully, the night was cloudless, and a bright moon had lit my way. I'd made it through the darkness unharmed and without getting lost. But it was late, much too late. The potter's door was barred from the inside. I leaned against it tiredly for a moment, then bashed my fist against the wood. It's Ruth, the Moabite. Let me in. Silence. Then I heard a scramble from inside and a thud as the bar was removed. The door creaked open just a crack, then widened slightly to reveal the potter's wife. You're alive, she remarked. I raised my eyebrows. Can I come in? We thought you must have run off, maybe, the potter's wife said, as she opened the door fully, or been taken. She seemed to take great delight in this thought. Your mother-in-law has been worried sick. But all I could think was that I was desperate to get rid of the weight I was carrying. The walk from Boaz's field had felt like a very long way. I heaved the bundle of grain onto the floor with a groan and flopped down next to it. My whole body ached, every single muscle. Well, I'm back now, I said. Could I have a cup of water? How dare you flop on my floor like that? Began the potter's wife angrily, but she trailed off. What have you got in that bundle? Is that all? I lay my head back and closed my eyes. It's all grain. Yes. I heard the woman fiddle with the bundle, untying my knot to check what was inside. She gasped audibly. Then she slapped my cheek hard. Thief! You must be a thief! I knew I should never let a filthy Moabite into my house. You'll bring shame on my family. I want you out at once. How dare you steal from the good, honest people of Ephrathah? Your father-in-law would turn in his grave if he knew. I sat up, wincing. No, stop. I didn't steal it. It's mine. I gleaned it. I gathered it all. The potter's wife stared at me. Naomi, appearing from the shadowy corner of the room, stared too. I gathered it all, I repeated, on my hands and knees. I went to the field of a kind man who let me glean. He gave me food. He told his workers to leave some of the barley so that I would have lots to pick up. That's how I've got so much. I didn't steal. The potter's wife looked at Naomi. My daughter-in-law is no thief, my mother-in-law said. She knelt down creakily and ran her hands through the grain. Ruth, she said in a shaky voice, where did you glean? Where did you work? In whose field? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. His name was Boaz, I told her. Boaz? Exclaimed the potter's wife. Boaz? Whispered Naomi. May the Lord bless him. Yes, I agreed. Now, please, may I have a cup of water? After I'd drunk and washed, Naomi patted the cushion next to her to invite me to sit. She wasn't refusing to speak to me any more then. I had no complaint. I sat beside her and leaned on her bony shoulder like a child with its mother. Naomi stroked my hair for a moment. Then, swallowing, she whispered, "Ruth, the Lord has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." A tear dropped from her eye onto my nose. I squeezed her hand, happy that she didn't feel cursed anymore. "You're right. You've always told me that your God is kind, haven't you? He hasn't turned away from us after all." Then I caught up fully with what she'd said. "What do you mean he's shown kindness to the living and the dead?" "That man Boaz," she croaked, "he's our kinsman. He's one of our redeemers." I didn't know what a redeemer was, or why this meant that the Lord had showed kindness to the dead. But I was used to Naomi making statements that she didn't bother to explain. I'd find out eventually. What I was interested in was the word kinsman. I straightened up and looked my mother-in-law in the eyes. "Our kinsman? Our relative? I thought you said you didn't have any of those left." Her eyes were still tear-filled. She shook her head wordlessly. "Naomi, do you think Boaz would take us in if we're family?" The potter's wife scoffed from across the room. "Ha, Boaz. He's not that closely related to you," she sneered. "And he's not married. He couldn't take a young woman like you into his house. It wouldn't be right. Not unless he married you. And why on earth would he do that? He's one of the richest and most respected men in Bethlehem. You should be grateful for what you've had from him already, which is more than anybody else would give, and not ask for anything more." There was silence for a moment. I was still looking at Naomi. "He told me to stay with his workers until they finish harvesting all the grain, the wheat as well as the barley." She nodded. "That will be good. In someone else's field, you might be harmed. Stay with the women who work for Boaz." That was all she said. But before I leaned back onto her shoulder, I saw that she had a little smile on her face. A secretive, "I've got a plan" sort of smile. I was too tired to ask questions. I'd just do as I was told. The barley harvest, then the wheat harvest, and then we'd see.
The events of chapter 13 are taken from Ruth chapter 2, verses 4 through 13. And in chapter 14, those events are taken from Ruth chapter 2, verses 14 to 18. We don't learn the names of any of Boaz's workers in the Bible. Iscah and the other workers you'll meet later are invented as well. And chapter 15, those events are taken from Ruth chapter 2, verses 19 through 22. The author invented the part about the potter's wife accusing Ruth of thievery, and we don't know where Ruth and Naomi were staying, but the accusation does seem likely. Ruth 2:17 tells us that she had gathered a whole ephah of grain. An ephah is an ancient measurement. It was about 10 days worth of food. Imagine it, all of the food you would eat for a whole 10 days, all in one bundle. That's a lot, especially given that Ruth is supposed to be just picking up bits and pieces that have been dropped accidentally. I cannot wait to see you on Saturday for the next 3 chapters of our book. Bye, you guys.